Mid-Nascent Soul stage cultivators, Han Li and Zhang Yuanying, entered Mineral Mountain to obtain the heaven-connecting spirit treasure. Unexpectedly, the seal on this mountain loosened, luring out an ancient demon, sacred ancestor Yuan Sha and Yin Yu's split soul, Long Meng. Faced with these two great powers, comparable to spirit transformation cultivators, Han Li and the others all started to have second thoughts. Their original plan was to sneak into the teleportation array and find a chance to leave, but after being detected by sacred ancestor Yuan Sha, their plan naturally fell apart. This sudden scene stunned Han Li and the others for a moment, and they all started cursing inwardly. Compared to the young man surnamed Su and the silver-winged Yaksha, Han Li had already prepared some backup plans, so he felt a bit more at ease. However, he glanced to his left and right, and discovered that the silver-winged Yaksha and Shai Kinchu's figures blurred, and then vanished in a flash of clear light. Han Li's brow furrowed. Nearby, the young man surnamed Su and that sky-blue sacred maiden had their lips moving nonstop. With grim expressions, they were discussing something. As for the few cultivators from the Yi family, they were clustered around the white-robed Confucian scholar, staying quietly together. They didn't speak or make any other strange movements. Han Li frowned. After his gaze swept across the white-robed scholar's impassive face, he faintly felt that something was not quite right. After a moment of thought, a blue light suddenly flashed in his pupils, as he activated the divine ability of his bright and clear spirit eyes. And upon taking a look, Han Li naturally discovered that among the Yi family cultivators, the white-robed Confucian scholar was unexpectedly shimmering with a faint light. It was merely a spirit energy phantom. His heart skipped a beat. Han Li hurriedly scanned his own surroundings first. After seeing no abnormalities, he felt slightly relieved and began searching all around for this Yi family's grand elder's true body. And at that very same moment, that black-robed woman, an incarnation of sacred ancestor Yuanshu's divine sense, after blocking a wave of golden thread attacks from the golden saber, suddenly brandished the black wine flag in her hand and threw it directly high into the sky. Her hands formed an incantation seal, and from her lips, she uttered a strange, arcane language. Following a loud bang, a mass of black wind suddenly emerged from the black wine flag. This wind grew from small to large, from thin to thick, and in the blink of an eye, it transformed into a colossal hurricane like a pillar supporting the heavens. And almost at the same instant the hurricane took form. A great thunderous roar erupted from above, and countless gloomy yellow clouds appeared. Streaks of silver arcs of varying thickness leapt and flickered within the clouds and mist, looking as if they could descend and strike at any moment. Beneath the yellow clouds, near the giant black peak, the wind surged like a tide. Countless wind blades began to condense and take shape, flickering in and out of existence. The entire space was filled with flying sand and shifting stones, and tremendous rumbling sounds could be heard everywhere. Han Li's body was dazzling with a clear light. He had already manifested a thick protective shield, enveloping himself and Yin Yue within it. But even so, as far as his eyes could see, there was nothing but the strange, dusky yellow wind. The protective shield was buffeted until it hummed and vibrated, like a small boat in a raging, stormy sea. Appearing incomparably tiny, Han Li couldn't help but press his lips together tightly, his face becoming exceptionally pale. The black wine flag, wielded by the incarnation of sacred ancestor Yuan Sha, was finally beginning to reveal the terrifying might of a heaven-reaching spirit treasure. At this moment, Han Li finally understood the meaning of vicious wind as sharp as knives, and the heavens collapsing and the earth cracking. Even though he was only at the edge of the black wine flag's power, he still felt as if he had lost his five senses. All that reached his ears was the sound of the howling wind, and all he could see was a vast expanse of dusky yellow. Even the divine stone couldn't move a single step. The moment it left the protective shield, its spiritual sense was instantly scattered by the vicious wind outside. Now he finally understood why the three-leaf fan replica, modeled after the seven-leaf fan, was ranked at the very bottom among heaven-reaching spirit treasures. The three-leaf fan, which could only exert 30 to 40% of its power, compared to the might of this black wine flag, was a world of difference. Fortunately, after he used his minking spirit eye's ability to once again inject spiritual power into his eyes, with a blue light flashing in his pupils, he could finally see the things inside the stonefish tent, albeit vaguely. As for the 9 true demons subduing grand formation in the distance, what had become of it under such a ferocious, evil wind? He couldn't figure it out for the time being. He could only sense from the ground's vibrations, which grew and shrank in intensity, that the battle within it seemed exceptionally fierce. He also looked up at the sky. The situation in the sky was just as bad. The dark clouds were all swept away by the gale, turning it into a chaotic mess like a churning river. There was no way to conceal oneself anywhere. Han Li's expression changed. Humph. The humming sound from the protective shield was getting louder and louder, and in order to maintain this shield, the drain on his spiritual power was clearly much greater than before. The power of the black winged flag was actually still increasing. Taking a deep breath, he subconsciously glanced down at his feet. It seemed that escaping into the ground was a good idea. Just as this thought appeared, beside his protective shield, a short distance away, a black pillar of wind as thick as a bull shot up from the ground towards the sky. It rapidly expanded and began to spin wildly. Instantly, an immense force came from it. The azure light shield was involuntarily squeezed towards the pillar of wind. Han Li's heart sank. The spiritual power throughout his body suddenly surged. The light shield flared brightly, finally managing to halt its movement. Immediately after, several streaks of golden sword light shot out from within the shield. It shimmered, weaving around the intersecting light. Under the crisscrossing sword energy, the wind pillar, which hadn't even unleashed its full power, was churned into dust and turned into black gas. But immediately, the black gas recondensed and began to spin. It was about to form a hurricane again. Seeing this, Han Li, with a grim expression, signaled, and shot backwards into the distance. It seemed these wind pillars were truly unnatural. Hiding underground didn't seem very safe either. After carefully dodging several more of the tree root-like wind pillars, the two of them arrived at a corner at the very edge of the space. Ahead of them was a dim, gray curtain wall. It was just as he had expected. Not only were the fierce winds much weaker here, but those black wind pillars didn't appear here either. The two of them could finally breathe a sigh of relief. But the serious expression on his face didn't disappear in the slightest. Instead, he looked towards the palace. A moment later, a golden light flashed in his eyes. With a flick of his wrist, a golden, tooth-long flying sword viciously slashed at the curtain wall behind him. With a sizzling sound, the gray, hazy curtain wall immediately split open, forming a vertical crack a tooth's depth deep. But with a flash of white light, it snapped back to its original state. He frowned. This curtain wall didn't look very tough. It could be easily split open with the flying sword, but there was no telling how thick it was, and when left alone, its recovery speed was astonishingly fast. If he couldn't pierce through the wall in a single strike, there was no hope of leaving this place. Thinking of this, after a moment of contemplation, Han Li moved his arm. He immediately placed a hand on the storage pouch at his waist. With a flash of spiritual light, the three flame fin appeared in his hand. Lin Li carefully and slowly infused a bit of power into the fan. Instantly, a three-colored glow appeared on the fan's surface. Han Li took a deep breath. Aiming the fan at the tent wall with one hand, he gave it a gentle wave. A torrent of three-colored flames immediately surged from the fan. Wherever it passed, the tent wall silently melted and disintegrated. A hole, about 10 feet wide, appeared. But after just one glance inside, his expression turned ugly, because this barrier was over 10 layers deep. Before the flames finally vanished and dissipated, but the barrier showed no signs of being broken through. Although he hadn't used the full power of the three-leaf fan, the sheer resilience of this barrier made his expression turn grave. Although the three-leaf fan was quite powerful, since the first strike had been ineffective, the idea that just adding a bit more power could shatter this strange restriction set by ancient cultivators was something he found hard to believe. After all, this was the place sealing that Dragon Meng demon concubine, and the incarnation of the ancient demon saint ancestor. Besides, unleashing the three-leaf fan's full power would create a huge commotion. After a single strike, it would very likely attract the attention of that ancient demon saint ancestor. At that point, forget about breaking through the barrier. It would be disastrous if he ended up bringing trouble upon himself. What's more, he suspected that this bizarre barrier might conceal other interconnected restrictions within it. If he destroyed the barrier and triggered other seals in the process, that would be no laughing matter. As he thought this, Han Li's grip on the three-leaf fan loosened slightly. His expression became uncertain. This place is not as simple as it seems. Master, it would be best not to act rashly. The hidden grievance, which had been somewhat dazed ever since seeing Long Meng, suddenly spoke up. Hearing this, Han Li smiled. He was just about to say something in reply, when his expression suddenly sank. He turned to face the fierce wind on one side, and said coldly, "Who's there, skulking around? Don't blame me for being ruthless." After saying this, he tightened his grip on the three-leaf fin in his hand. A three-colored radiance immediately began to swirl erratically across the fan's surface once more. "Fellow Taoist Han, don't attack just yet. I am well aware of the power of your treasure fan. I have no desire to be struck by it for no reason." A man's voice drifted over faintly. Following that, from within the dusky, howling wind, the figures in white emerged. A man and a woman. It was the young man surnamed Su and the Tianlin Saintess, Lin Yinping. Han Li's brow twitched slightly, not bothering to hide the surprise on his face. But his tone remained just as cold as he said, "Oh, you to have come here. Are you planning to take this opportunity to make a move against me?" As he spoke, he cast a seemingly casual glance in the direction of the palace. Although the wind was at its most violent over there, with most of the black pillars of wind converging in that area, it still couldn't mask the faint sound of thunder carried on the wind. Occasionally, a flash or two of blinding golden light would tear across the sky, instantly illuminating the entire space. It seems that 9 true demon subduing formation is truly something else. To be able to hold out this long under the ferocious power of the black wine flag, it has unexpectedly held on until now. I just wonder if Bashai has also joined the fray. Han Li mused to himself. But once he saw that the woman in the black robe was still too preoccupied to pay attention to things over here, he felt a sense of temporary relief. He immediately turned his gaze back to the man and woman before him, his expression unreadable. "Fellow Taoist, there's no need for this. We came here this time, not to cause you trouble, but to discuss a strategy for our own survival." Lin Yinping seemed to have anticipated Han Li's hostility. With a wave of her hand, she cast a sound-insulating barrier, and then said unhurriedly, "About this strategy for survival." A thought crossed Han Li's mind, but his voice remained completely devoid of emotion as he spoke. "Fellow Taoist Han, why ask when you already know the answer? That ancient demon sacred ancestor's black wine flag is incredibly powerful. Even if we all joined forces, we'd be no match for him. If we don't take this chance while the demon, is tied up by that boundary-crossing demon concubine to escape this perilous situation, are we supposed to wait for him to turn back and leisurely take care of us?" Because time was short, the woman didn't bother with any other tricks, and directly stated her intentions. "Could it be that you no longer want the heaven-reaching spirit treasure?" Han Li's eyes narrowed, as he asked faintly, "Fellow Taoist, you must be joking. The spirit treasure is certainly precious, but how can it compare to our lives? This ancient demon's sacred ancestor has been trapped under this tower for so many years. His true essence has long been depleted, and our nascent souls are the best medicine for him to recover his energy. Once he gets a moment to breathe, he will absolutely not let us go." The young man with the surname Su seemed to know quite a bit about these ancient demons, and said decisively, "Then what do you plan to do?" Han Li had already guessed their intentions, but he asked anyway. "Naturally, we'll join forces and launch a sneak attack on the ancient demon guarding the teleportation array over there, and then seize the path to escape," the young man surnamed Su said without hesitation. "Just the few of us. Do you really know? How powerful that two-headed, four-armed ancient demon is?" Han Li let out a cold laugh, and retorted, "What? Are you saying the few of us can't take down this demon?" Lin Yinping was a bit surprised, and asked with a light laugh, "If you knew that back in the day, this demon once faced 3 great cultivators, and was surrounded by more than 10 other nascent soul cultivators, and still managed to escape, I wonder if you'd still be so confident." Han Li gently stroked the feather fin in his hand, and said slowly, "This ancient demon is the one from back then, the fiend that escaped from your Dianan." The youth surnamed Su said indifferently, "That's right. It is this very demon." Seeing Han Li so certain, the Tu Grand Immortal Master and Lin Yinping beside him exchanged a glance, and a hint of hesitation appeared on their faces. "Then what if the 2 of us join in? That should be enough to force this demon back, right?" From above their heads, a chilling voice suddenly sounded, just as the expressions on Han Li and the others changed drastically to flashes of light. One yellow and one crimson shot out from midair, revealing Yin Chi Yi Cha and the figure of Shai Qin Shou. Their bodies were surrounded by a spiritual aura, completely unafraid of the astral winds in the sky, floating there, perfectly still. It seems Yin Chi Yicha's windshield ability is actually in its element in this harsh environment. "So, He'd also wish to join forces. After seeing the two of them clearly, Han Li calmed himself down again. Of course, although we are not of the same kind as you, in the eyes of this ancient demon patriarch, there is no difference. If we don't act, our chances of survival are just as slim. Yin Chi Yi Cha said bluntly. It's good to have you, to fellow Taoists, lend a hand. With you and fellow Taoist Gui Ling, our odds are much better. There's no time to lose. Let's act now. Who knows how much time that formation and the Ba Ling ruler can buy for us? The youth surnamed Su agreed at once. After a flash of killing intent appeared on his face, he turned to look at Han Li. Obviously, as long as Han Li agreed, their alliance would be set. Yin Chi Cha and Shai Chin Shou also looked towards Han Li. Han Li subconsciously pursed his lips, hesitating for a moment. Finally, he slowly nodded his head. We've only temporarily forced this demon back. We don't necessarily have to destroy it. This number of people is indeed enough. Good. I'll bring fellow Taoist Gui back right away. Having made his decision, Han Li no longer hesitated. He immediately formed a hand seal, and within his body, Gui Ling's life tablet trembled. It immediately began to flicker with a faint spiritual light. The two silver red leaf beasts and the Shai clan beast took this opportunity to descend from the sky and stood off to the side. In just a moment, a yellow light flashed where Han Li stood. The ugly woman, like a phantom, appeared silently behind him. Gui Ling, who had just appeared, regarding the Su surnamed youth and the silver red leaf beasts and other demons nearby, did not seem surprised, but after glancing at Han Li, her lips moved slightly as she sent him a sound transmission. Han Li's originally calm face suddenly showed a trace of astonishment. What is it? Fellow Taoist Gui, did you discover something down there? Lin Yinping, the heavenly azure saintess, seeing Han Li's expression, asked as her bright eyes lit up. It's nothing. It's just that those two fellow Taoists from the Huaxian sect seem to be looking for a way out down there as well. Han Li's expression immediately returned to normal as he said indifferently, Oh, is that so? The woman's captivating eyes shifted, and an ambiguous smile played on her lips. She clearly didn't believe what Han Li said, but Han Li remained expressionless, clearly unwilling to say more, although the others were also surprised and suspicious. Since they were about to act together, they were naturally unwilling to press the matter. The group immediately began to discuss how to proceed. They were all experienced fighters. After a brief discussion inside a soundproof barrier, they immediately came up with a concrete plan. Instantly, a fluorescent light began to flicker on the others, vanished one after another in the howling wind, and began their operation. Han Li nodded to Kun Gailing. The woman then once again vanished into the earth. As for Yin Yuan, at his command, he once again transformed into a small fox, and flew into Cheshu's robe. Han Li looked in the direction of the black transportation array, and stroked his chin. With a slap of one hand, the spirit beast storage pouch flashed with fluorescent light. A faint silver figure appeared in front of him. It was that humanoid puppet. With a light wave of one hand, the light around the puppet swirled, and it instantly transformed into an inconspicuous yellow light. Then, a purple glow suddenly erupted from its eyes, and its figure vanished into thin air, as if it had never been there at all. This battle was no small matter. To be on the safe side, Han Li couldn't afford to hold back any longer. With the willow branch puppet providing support from the side, only then could he fight with peace of mind. Moreover, given the puppet's previously demonstrated skill in concealment, he presumed that Gumo would not be able to detect it. As for the black-robed woman, Han Li had never encountered a Yuan Sha, a demon of the saint ancestor level, so he wasn't very confident he could hide from her divine senses. One hand gripped the three geese fan, while the other formed a hand seal. Wind and thunder wings appeared on his back. With a flash of fluorescent light, Han Li also vanished on the spot. In another corner of the space, above the black transportation array, Gumo floated in the air with his arms crossed. Below him was a formation, enveloped in a righteous che that glowed with a gray light. One of the demon's heads stared in the direction of the palace, wearing a solemn expression. The other head's eyes continuously scanned the surroundings, warily on guard against something. Its four demonic claws held a pair of rings, an azure halberd, and a crimson, brick-shaped treasure. Although the vicious wind stirred up by the black wine flag was ferocious, it didn't seem to affect the demon much. Staring in the direction of the palace, that head didn't even blink. Suddenly, a glint flashed in the demon's eyes. A loud bang echoed from the distance. At the center of the space, a golden blade of light shot up into the sky. Wherever it passed, it split the thick layers of clouds apart. Its momentum was astonishing. Even the howling of the wind seemed to pause for a moment. The furrowed brows on the ancient demon's head twitched. A hint of hesitation appeared on its face. It seemed to want to go over and provide support, but it looked heavily conflicted. But it immediately calmed down, because after that astonishing blade light flashed in the distance, an equally massive pillar of wind swept out. The wind pillar was tens of meters in diameter. Like a black wine dragon, wherever it passed, it even swallowed the lightning in the sky. It was so turbulent that the very air around it began to warp and distort, as if it was about to tear this realm apart. Seeing this, the ancient demon's expression relaxed. But then, without any warning, its other head, its eyes narrowed, and one of its giant hands suddenly waved forward. A red light shot through the air. After a brief flash, it transformed into a massive, brick-like object several jong high and smashed down violently. Before it even landed, crimson light swirled around it, and several bearing-fanged, living pythons emerged from it. Humph, I didn't expect you to be so vigilant. A cold snort came from within the raging wind, and two figures emerged. One of them casually raised a hand, and a streak of blue and red light shot out. It transformed into a jade umbrella about 10 feet wide and flew up to meet it. A series of booming, explosive sounds. This jade umbrella was actually an ancient treasure of heat and cold. As a result, amidst a vast expanse of blue, cold energy, it instantly blocked the falling fire brick. Blue light and red flames clashed violently at the tip of the treasure for a moment. Although the few fire pythons kept pouncing, biting, and tearing, the pythons were abnormally fierce. But because their elements were in conflict, they couldn't do anything to the jade umbrella at all. The two figures stood still on the ground, looking up clearly at the gumo in the sky. It was the young man named Su and Li Mingping, and the gumo's massive heads moved. For I stared down at the man and woman below at the same time. I recognize you. You are cultivators from the Azure Sky Prairie. What, you want to leave now? Unfortunately, it's too late. One of the heads gave a cold smile, and let out a thunderous voice. Hearing this, the young man named Zu's expression turned grim, but he said nothing. Instead, he slapped the spirit beast pouch on his waist. Instantly, the cry of a phoenix rang out. Amidst a flash of rosy light, a five-colored peacock flew out from within. It spread its wings and hovered above the young man's head. Incredibly, wherever the five-colored spiritual light from the peacock shone, all the wind was suppressed. The valley immediately became calm and still. This entire scene fell into the goo. Mosai's, Elixir Peacock, you actually possess such an ancient spirit bird. A pity its cultivation level is too shallow. If it were an adult, this venerable one might actually fear it a little. The gumo seemed a bit surprised. Is that so? Then have a taste of the five-colored spiritual light's power first. The young man named Su was completely unmoved by the gumo's words. He let out a clear cry. The peacock above his head immediately raised its neck in response. Then, it suddenly flapped its wings. Myriad rays of rosy light burst forth. A five-colored phosphorescent light rolled out as Gumo let out a cold snort. He held a pair of purple rings. His two large hands came together. With a light touch, the two rings emitted an ear-piercing screech. It was a sound that made one feel restless and agitated. Divine stone, dizzying abyss. Then, the two rings shot from his hands. They transformed into layers upon layers of purple illusions. For a moment, they completely blotted out the nearby sky. The display was nothing short of astonishing. But this demon wasn't finished yet. His hands formed a seal. Layers of black demonic energy emanated from his entire body. It seemed he was about to use a demonic art to support his treasure's attack. Meanwhile, the young man surnamed Su and Tianlin on the other side also took out a treasure of their own. One of them raised a hand. A ball of pure light shot directly at him, while another silver object flashed brightly. Countless silver threads sprayed forth. Just then, in the air, one purple, one cyan, two faint plumes of smoke appeared in the wind. They silently drifted to a spot right above Gumo's head. Their movements were completely silent, a testament to the brilliance of their concealment technique. The purple illusions and the five-colored spiritual light crashed into each other, splashing up bursts of shimmering light, and the demonic energy on Gumo's body transformed into vertical black tendrils, which lunged forward menacingly. Suddenly, a blinding spiritual light suddenly erupted from the two plumes of smoke. Two figures leapt out. Their sharp claws came together as one. A hazy cloud of fine gray threads descended upon his head. In an instant, it was right above Gumo. At that very moment, The attacks released by the young man Su and his partner also arrived right in front of Gumo. The timing was coordinated perfectly. It was absolutely seamless. To be pincered like this and suddenly ambushed naturally startled Gumo. However, he didn't truly panic. Instead, with a mere thought, the nearby demonic energy took form. The black serpent coiled, instantly turning to face the attack with its head, to block that ball of green light and the dense silver threads. At the same time, its two heads reared up. One spewed a hazy black demonic mist, while the other shot out a fleeting black ray. But then, another surprise struck, just as the demon's attention was completely drawn to the sneak attack from above. From the grayness at its feet, at the edge of the still formation, a golden light flashed. A giant sword, letting out a thunderous crack, shot out from the ground, slashing straight up into the air. Its speed was so immense that almost at the same instant, the demon was startled. The giant sword was right before it. The purple flames and golden arcs of electricity on the sword were all seen clearly by the demon in that moment. "It's you." The ancient demon instantly recognized the owner of the giant sword, letting out a cry of shock and fury. But because the giant sword arrived too quickly, and it was preoccupied with the other attacks, it had no other choice. It could only hastily swing its forearms downwards. A series of sharp whooshing sounds tore through the air, as dozens of golden and silver claw strikes formed a large net, grabbing towards the giant sword. Such a hastily formed defense was naturally unable to stop the giant sword. As a result, the giant sword pierced through the net in an instant, and then flashed forward, slashing towards the demon. But, in that brief moment, just as the giant sword was about to strike home, a layer of pitch-black demonic shield materialized on the demon's body. With a deafening boom, a massive ball of light erupted on the demon's body. The light within was blindingly brilliant, making it impossible to see anything clearly. On the ground, a silver arc flashed. Han Li appeared. He emerged from below with a thunderous sound. He raised his hand and looked towards the sky. His brow furrowed. The giant sword he had just erected had struck the demon's body, but it hadn't landed a solid blow. It seemed to have glanced off something. Just as he was marveling at this in secret, something moved within the ball of light in the sky. With a swish, a black shadow shot out. From within the green miasma, it flickered and then vanished. The next moment, it appeared above Han Li's head. "Die!" the giant figure roared. Its voice was like a clap of thunder. A giant, pitch-black blade, humming with power, chopped straight down at Han Li. It was as fast as lightning, striking before one could even cover their ears. Although Han Li was surprised, he was already prepared. As the giant blade came down, the phoenix thunder wings on his back had already unfurled a moment earlier. Amidst an arc of lightning, he vanished from his spot. The black blade missed by a hair's breadth. A loud crash was heard. A giant gash, several feet deep, was left on the ground. Then, over 60 feet away, the sound of thunder rumbled, and Han Li's figure reappeared. He stared into the distance. The giant figure was the four-eyed Gumo, but at this moment, she looked extremely wretched. Of her four demonic arms, only 3 remained intact. The last one had been severed halfway down. On the tip of her head, a new, fist-sized hole had appeared. On her chest were several thick claw marks, which had nearly disemboweled the demon. It seemed that under the combined attack of Han Li and the others, this demon was ultimately unable to resist, and had suffered a considerable loss. Seeing Han Li escape from right under her nose, a ferocious light flashed in the Gumo's eyes. She shot Han Li a vicious glare, then indifferently parted her hands. A black light flashed. That giant blade of Wang Ming's was nearly split in two, transforming into 2 separate blades. The slightly smaller blades of light still emitted a piercing sound. Gumo flicked the twin blades in his hands. Instantly, the gleam of the blades multiplied into countless, palm-sized, black crescent moons, which shot densely toward Han Li. This demon actually ignored the other cultivators, seeming to have locked onto Han Li as its opponent. It intended to pursue him relentlessly. This was hardly surprising. Among this group of people, only Han Li and that sky-blue maiden had the lowest cultivation levels. As for Lin Yin, he was in the air with a young man surnamed Su. In comparison, being all alone, Han Li seemed to be the easiest opponent to defeat. Of course, this was also because the Gumo was not the same one from back then. That demon soul had never fought Han Li before. Otherwise, it would never have had this thought that it would surely come to regret. Seeing Gumo attack so ferociously, Han Li showed no sign of shock. Instead, with a flick of his sleeve, a small silver shield shot out. In an instant, it transformed into a shield, blocking his path. He glanced at the demon, and let out a soft sigh. From a distance, Gumo saw Hanli's expression, and was momentarily taken aback, but it immediately felt a strange pressure coming from beneath its feet. Before it could even look down, with a soft squelch, a figure wrapped in a ball of yellow light bizarrely emerged from the ground, appearing a short distance behind it. Then, this person let out a low cry. With a wave of both hands, a giant silver axe came slashing down with a vicious gust of wind. This person was none other than the one who had been hiding underground near Hanli, Shufugui Lin. With the terrifying cultivation of this demon stone and demon beast, combined with a full power strike that had been gathering momentum, the axe hadn't even landed yet. But the terrifying spiritual power it contained caused the nearby ground to rumble loudly and suddenly collapse into a deep pit. Gumo's expression changed. Forgetting about his attack on Hanli, his figure flickered and spun around like a phantom. At the same time, he crossed the twin blades in his hands upwards. A black aura surged. Two thick beams of light shot out from the blades, striking the giant axe head-on. The black and silver lights collided strangely, and immediately exploded. A wave of energy, both hot and cold, violently swept out in all directions. The impact temporarily halted the giant axe's descent, holding it for a moment before dissipating. Seizing this opportunity, Gumo had just enough time to unleash another demonic art. He formed a hand seal, and his body suddenly let out the sound of cracking joints. His body instantly swelled in size. At the same time, on his exposed skin, large, bull-sized, blackish-green scales began to appear. They were so shiny, it was as if he was instantly covered in a layer of smooth battle armor. His previous wounds were enveloped in black demonic energy, and new flesh squirmed and writhed, looking as if it were healing at a visible rate. After Gumo's body had grown a full circle larger, a vicious glint flashed in his eyes. He took a deep breath, and as he opened his mouth, tangible-looking shockwaves rippled outwards in circles. The descending giant axe was caught within them, and it immediately began to hum, as if blocked by an invisible force, unable to descend another inch. Meanwhile, from this demon's mouth, a strange incantation suddenly rang out. The scales on his body flashed with a black light, and began to ooze a viscous, blackish-purple fluid, until his entire body was enveloped by it. It burned fiercely, looking strangely eerie. It looked exactly like he was about to use some powerful secret art. Gui Ling's heart sank, but his figure didn't retreat. Instead, he let out a loud roar. His body suddenly grew to a monstrous size. A suit of cyan battle armor also appeared on his body. He had actually activated his giant form. As the silver axe in his hand was about to grow larger, it also burst with a brilliant spiritual light and expanded with him. Under this critical threat, it finally happened in an instant. This transformation from Gui Ling was clearly beyond Gumo's expectations. Looking at his foe, who was now twice his size, the demon's heart also jumped in shock. He had no choice but to stop his demonic incantation. He quickly raised the black blades in his hands upwards, and his body gracefully floated backward. The black blades and the giant axe made contact. An astonishing boom erupted. A fierce shockwave spread out in all directions. But Gumo, who was already prepared, was unharmed. Instead, his body used the force of this shockwave to shoot backward at an even faster speed, showing no signs of injury whatsoever. However, while flying backward, Gumo let out a cold laugh. The long cyan halberd held by his third arm suddenly erupted in a layer of black demonic flame. With a single wave, it turned into a shooting star, heading straight for Gui Ling's massive body at an incredible speed, as fast as a bolt of lightning. In a flash, it struck Gui Ling's enormous body. The battle armor exploded with a piercing light. Then, before Gumo's body had even stabilized, the sound of his incantation started up again. He was about to unleash the secret art that was almost ready. It seemed he didn't think the previous attack could actually kill a level 10 shape-shifting beast. But just at this moment, the unexpected happened. A few feet behind the demon, a faint black light flashed. An inch-long, ink-black flying dagger with a golden and silver glint materialized, silently, without a trace. Then, a black streak flashed. The flying dagger vanished strangely in a flash. Almost at the same time, the terrifying and formidable ancient demon Yiche actually sensed that something was wrong ahead of time. He was about to dart away. But in that instant, one of the ancient demon's heads was thrown back. As something pierced it, his divine sense was suddenly struck by a sharp pain. Even though this demon's divine sense was incredibly powerful, his body couldn't help but falter from this surprise attack. His movements hesitated for a moment, and in that tiny delay, a line appeared on the neck of one of his heads, a thin, bloodless line. Immediately after, this head rolled off without any warning. Blood instantly spurted several feet high from the neck. At this moment, in the distance, a pale-faced Han Li finally released his hands from the spell-casting gesture he was making. He looked quite drained. The attack just now on the ancient demon's divine sense was based on the spirit thorn from the Great Development technique, which he had slightly modified and developed himself, creating a simplified version of the divine sense attack. This type of divine sense attack, although he hadn't cultivated the final layers of the Great Development technique, meant its power was far from comparable to the true spirit thorn. However, when unleashed suddenly, as long as the target had no special defenses, anyone would fall for it and be greatly affected. He named this secret technique the soul-devouring thorn, to distinguish it from the true spirit thorn. However, this method of divine sense attack, even though he had intentionally reduced its power, still sent a shock through his own divine sense after just one use, leaving him dizzy and disoriented. He was completely unable to launch a second attack. The ancient demon's remaining head blinked its eyes, seemingly unable to believe what had just happened, but it immediately let out a roar of shock and fury. Suddenly, countless streams of demonic energy erupted, engulfing its entire body within. Then, the demonic energy roiled. The demon's figure blurred and vanished without a trace. The next moment, 30 to 40 jong away, the space trembled and shifted. Then, a strange, pitch-black aura emerged. The demon stumbled out from within the demonic energy. It seemed that having one of its heads severed, although it didn't truly kill the demon, and from Gui Ling appearing and striking, to the demon getting its head severed and being heavily injured. Swiftly, this series of actions happened in a flash of lightning. It was just an instant. The events, however, left the young man named Su and the silver-winged yaksha above completely dumbfounded. This was not what they had originally planned. Their original plan was simply to join forces for a single strike, to temporarily repel the demon from the vicinity of the transportation formation. As for whether they could injure the demon, that was never part of their consideration. But now, after they had forced the demon down, although Han Li had initially acted according to their plan, and launched a sneak attack on the demon with Gui Ling, what was with the turn of events that followed? Han Li suddenly looked as if he was trying to kill the demon outright. A desperate gamble, and that strange flying dagger. How did it appear behind the demon? From their high vantage point, they also failed to notice the appearance of that treasure. If it had appeared behind them, would they have been able to detect it? As this thought surfaced, both the young man named Su and the silver-winged yaksha felt a chill down their spines. Their expressions changed slightly. But speaking of which, the demon was truly unlucky to have so many high-level cultivators attack it consecutively in one go, giving it no chance to even breathe. Despite possessing astonishing divine abilities, it had no time to use any of them, and was inexplicably dealt a heavy blow. Otherwise, if it were allowed to truly unleash its astonishing demonic arts, even if Han Li and the others joined forces to seriously injure this demon, it wouldn't be something that could be done in a short amount of time. Therefore, he appeared. The demon twisted its head, and with a venomous look in its eyes, it glared hatefully at Han Li. Then, shrouded in black shit, it tried to flee in the direction of the black-robed woman. It knew that in its current condition, it was impossible to escape from Han Li and the others. It had no intention of fighting back at all. But Han Li's gaze, as he looked at this demon, revealed a mocking expression. A ball of fluorescent light suddenly exploded near the demon. Then, a figure flickered and appeared bizarrely. The demon was greatly shocked. Like a startled bird, it hastily took a defensive stance. As billowing demonic chet enveloped its body, only then did it look over. But as soon as its eyes met the others, it suddenly felt the world spin. Instantly, its mind was filled with nothing but two balls of eerie purple light, and it could feel nothing else. The power of the soul technique was the reason. Even a late-stage cultivator couldn't compare. It had once stunned the old demon Zhuang Guangjing. It only caused this demon to be momentarily dazed, before it immediately regained its senses. But in that brief moment of distraction, a streak of jade light, amidst a clap of thunder, silently arrived before the demonic chet. Intertwined within it were flashing golden arcs, which the newly awakened demon saw with perfect clarity. The evil warding divine thunder. The demon was startled. It actually recognized the origin of the golden arcs. that had caused many ancient demons and devils to suffer greatly back in the day. If it were before its injury, it would have had ways to activate secret arts to resist it. But now, it was unwilling to take the hit head-on, fearing that its vital energy would be severely damaged again. Immediately, the demon waved its single hand. Instantly, a force suddenly gathered in front of it, instantly transformed into a small, black shield, directly shooting towards the green-haired demon. Meanwhile, his own body flickered, appearing in another spot outside the tree canopy. But just as this demon's figure came to a stop, a sudden, strange clap of thunder echoed from behind him. Not good. The demon's heart instantly sank, before he could even react. Accompanied by a flash of the yin tiger, Han Li, with his twin crimson slashes, appeared behind the demon. With a flick of his sleeves, a purple, fire-infused box, and dozens of small golden swords shot forth. Han Li's timing was exceptionally clever. Even if the ancient demon wanted to dodge, he simply didn't have enough time to evade it completely. With no other choice, the demon's single head suddenly rotated 180 degrees. In an extremely bizarre fashion, it turned to face Han Li. Then, its mouth opened, and a long, black shockwave erupted out once more in concentric rings. Meanwhile, with a blur of its two demonic arms, two black blades immediately materialized, swinging them upwards right after. But what the demon never expected was that just as its head turned, a ripple appeared in the space originally in front of it. The black flying dagger that had severed one of its heads had bizarrely reappeared and vanished in a flash. This time, the ancient demon's attention was completely drawn to the suddenly appearing Han Li behind it. So when the water drill refined dagger appeared again, its senses were clearly a beat slower than last time. And with the dagger's bizarre speed, by the time the ancient demon's expression changed in alarm and it tried to dodge again, it was already too late. The same scene played out once more at the ancient demon's neck. A line of blood appeared, and the ancient demon's other head rolled cleanly off. Seeing this, Han Li was naturally overjoyed. But before a smile could even form on his face, the headless ancient demon's twin blades in its hands unexpectedly did not dissipate and vanish. Instead, Yang transformed into two streaks of black light, both shooting towards Han Li. Immediately, a fierce wind rose, and the headless demon's body exploded into a thick cloud of demonic energy. Although Han Li was startled, how could he let his captured prey truly escape? Without a second thought, he formed a hand seal. The purple fire serpent he had originally shot out also self-destructed with a bang. Tiny, inch-sized purple flames filled the area within a 10-jong radius, covering the area like a summer downpour. Meanwhile, dozens of small golden swords converged densely, instantly annihilating the two black blades. Then, with a roar, all the flying swords scattered. Streaks of golden electric arcs shot out from the flying swords, forming a massive golden net. It followed the purple flames, descending to trap it from above. A loud sizzling sound erupted. The demonic energy had no time to escape far, before it was frozen solid within huge blocks of purple ice, forcefully sealed inside. The remaining black energy crashed head-on into the golden electric net. After a series of crackles, it was completely annihilated. Seeing this, Han Li remained cautious and formed another hand seal. Softly uttering the word explode, the entire golden net burst apart. Countless fine electric arcs rained down. The purple ice beneath it immediately shattered and disintegrated. The black energy within the shattered ice, and the countless hidden Liu Gu demons within it, were naturally swept away completely. Several treasures fell from the demonic energy. When he saw that one or two of them were wrapped in strands of black silk, forming a ball, his eyes lit up. With a flick of his finger, two golden arcs shot out, instantly causing the black silk to vanish into smoke, revealing two small golden swords. Their surfaces were a bit dim, as if their spiritual energy had been significantly damaged. They were the very same two swords Han Li had lost for many years, the Qingyu and Fengyan swords. Han Li was overjoyed. He hurriedly urged them with his spiritual sense. The two flying swords shot up from below, landing in his hands on their own. The heart that Han Li had been holding in suspense could finally relax for the most part. Thankfully, although the flying swords had been sealed by the Drum Devil for years, their spiritual essence wasn't completely lost. As long as he re-refined them a little, they could be restored to their original state immediately. At this moment, the young man named Su, the silver-winged Yaksha, and the others in the distance, had watched helplessly as Han Li injured the Drum Devil, then chased right after it. In just a few moves, he actually managed to slay the Drum Devil. It seemed even its primordial spirit didn't escape. They all looked at each other, in utter disbelief. They could all see the fear in each other's eyes. As for the newly appeared humanoid puppet, these few were naturally completely baffled. They had no idea where Hanli had summoned such a powerful a life from. When everyone was teleported in here earlier, this person wasn't with them at all. Could this person's movement technique be so profound that they could deceive the eyes and ears of so many people at once? As this thought crossed their minds, they naturally felt even more uneasy.